Thank you, Ciarán Comhairle. I'd just like to take the opportunity also to congratulate the Minister, first of all, on retaining his portfolio and gaining one. We've worked well together in the past, so I wish him all the luck in the future. It's going to be an arduous task dealing with Brexit. I'd also like to congratulate colleague Colm Brophy on being Minister and wish him all the best, particularly as I have a very large family spread all over the world, so I hope you won't have to be engaging with any of them. Today, Minister, I really want to say in relation to the revised estimates, I appreciate the increase, particularly in relation to COVID, and what I would like to do also is thank you and your department for the assistance, particularly to the constituents of Wexford who needed representation during COVID, and the department staff, and I'd ask you to pass on our thanks, were very, very helpful, and all matters were relatively easily sorted out and people got home. Furthermore, I think, I was glad to hear you say that for the latter part of 2020 you're going to deal with Brexit, in the realm of which it will be upon us very, very soon, 5 months' time. So that brings me to one of the issues I'm going to discuss today, which are questions in relation to how foreign affairs are going to deal with probably impartial trade in Brexit in relation to the fishermen and the issues that will come up once the UK waters are no longer accessible to EU fishermen, and particularly Irish, who probably access EU waters more than any other of the EU member states. So currently we do fish 60% of mackerel and 40% of what's trawled in prawns by Irish trawlers, which are the mainstays of the sector, are fished in UK waters. Those waters are soon, as I said, to be outside of the EU and off limits to Irish trawlers. So put simply, 30% of what is trawled by Irish fishermen will be just wiped out post-Brexit. Significant changes to existing arrangements would be devastating for the Irish fishing industry. And there is some mixed signals coming from all sides of the Brexit argument and how it will be managed. So the EU has a legally binding commitment under Article 148 of the Withdrawal Agreement to discuss fishing access and trade together. The UK has set out its negotiating position, which says that they're insisting that fisheries is not part of any trade deal, whereas the EU wants to tie any post-Brexit trade agreement to a deal on fisheries. And at page 70 of our current programme for government, under the heading Marine, it says, and I'll quote, "We will ensure protection of the interests of the Irish fishing industry by insisting that a fisheries agreement with the UK is concluded as an integral part of any overall EU trade agreement with the UK." So, Minister, if you can, I'd just like to ask you in relation to those positions, which reflects the current situation. Also of major concern for fishermen nationally, but one that I've heard first-hand in my own constituency dealing with fishermen in Wexford, Kilmore and Duncannon and other areas, is the likely increase in activity in the fishing grounds and the waters around Ireland post-Brexit. They expect that there will be a huge increase of other EU re-registered UK vehicles back to EU ownership. So again, I'm glad that this is recognised in the programme for government, and it says at page 70 again, "We will recognise that the critical issue in these negotiations for the Irish industry is continued access to UK waters and quota share, and the danger of displacement of the EU fleet into Irish territorial waters." So, Minister, while it is important that the government indeed recognises what the critical factors are, it is very, very important to understand and have the knowledge of what action the government is going to take. So, Minister, if you can just tell us what steps are being prepared to prevent displacement or increase in vessels whom have re-registered to the EU post-Brexit. And I'll finish on this, Minister. The COVID crisis hit the fishing industry very, very hard. I would have to say, while supports were welcome, they were absolutely very, very poor in comparison to what other EU countries offered to their fishing industry. And with Brexit only months away, it's going to be one of the worst affected sectors. Currently, 14% of Irish fish exports go to the UK. And those are going to be in huge jeopardy post-Brexit, and the cost of doing business for the sector will increase exponentially. It's imperative that supports should be granted now, as it's needed now. Any of cash flow, or what might have been very tight cash flow, has been eroded because of COVID. And in the programme for government, again, it's on page 70 and page 105, it says, we will seek EU Commission contingency supports and market disturbance funding for the fisheries sector to mitigate against the impact of COVID-19 and Brexit. So, Minister, you might be able to enlighten us as to what the supports will entail and when they will be made available to the sector. And I understand that primarily this is a complex issue because it will involve the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Trade, and yourself in the Department of Foreign Affairs. So if you could do your best to address some of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, look, thanks for your compliments in terms of the department's consular division through the COVID crisis, and we're not finished yet because COVID as a virus is still accelerating in many parts of the world, and parts of the world where Irish citizens live, places like Latin America, South America, obviously in the United States itself, and indeed across Africa too. So I expect our consular division will continue to be very busy in terms of supporting Irish citizens in terms of those wanting to come home. On fishing, and Deputy, you've raised a whole series of issues to do with fishing. First of all, no one should assume the outcome yet. So saying things like we will be locked out of UK waters, or we're going to have 30% of the stock that we access wiped out. We don't know whether any of that's true yet. We are in a negotiation. And the important thing in this negotiation is that fisheries is part of the broader trade negotiation to ensure that the EU uses the leverage that it has to get the best possible outcome for its fishing interests, including Irish fishing interests. And so my job is to ensure that the task force led by Michel Barnier continues to focus on a good outcome from a fisheries perspective to try to protect the two key issues, which is access into UK waters to catch fish, and secondly, quota share. Because as we know, if you take a stock like mackerel, even though many of the stocks that are caught off Scotland spawn off Ireland, the reality is that we should be catching fish where it makes sense to catch them from a conservation and sustainability point of view, as well as from a profitability point of view. And what we don't want is distortions of fishing that forces fishermen to catch fish too early or in the wrong place in order to respond to the restrictions that come in a post-COVID environment. So this is a complex negotiation, but it's a hugely important negotiation for counties like Donegal and Galway and Kerry and West Cork and Wexford and Howth and all of the other constituencies and counties that have a huge reliance on the fishing industry. And I can assure you it is central to our prioritisation in terms of Brexit outcomes.